listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellen Flukiger, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hey there, welcome to the show. Welcome to my living room. Not really, it's a gorgeous virtual background that I have. I'm getting ready to do a concert. On the 18th of February, I'm going to do a concert. It's going to introduce some songs that I have created. I've got three albums done and a fourth one underway. And the reason I'm telling you about this is, one, I want you to come, and I'll give you some information about it next week and the week after that about how to find out about it. But more than that, this is consistent with what we've been talking about the last bunch of weeks, which is about your story and why it matters and how to share it and how to do something with it and how to make a difference and how to make money by serving. Okay, when I talk about your ultimate life, you know what's funny? When I ask people, what is your ultimate life? Tell me what that looks like, right? The first answer almost never is money. The first answer is almost always either peace, health, or freedom. And then when I ask, okay, what is that made out of? Like, what provides you freedom? Then money gets in there somewhere. But you know what? We all know for sure that when our health is in trouble, right? Nothing else matters. We all know that when people are on their deathbeds, nobody says, ooh, I wish I had more money. They say, I wish I'd taken more time for relationships. I wish I'd gotten to know my kids, grandkids better. I wish I'd said no to all those extra projects, because all that crap I bought with all that money I thought was so important isn't going to help me now, right? And that's over and over again. So you know that. The reason I'm tying that to the songs is because, really simply, these albums, and I'll mention them to you. You can go on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or anywhere and find them. Look up my name, Kellen Flukiger. One of them is called Name of the Black. Name of the Black. And the reason I'm telling you about this is because the title of tonight's episode is Your Story is Not Your Trauma. Okay? A lot of times people identify with their trauma. They're a this survivor or a that survivor. I spoke at 3 or 4 conferences several years ago. And they were one each year, and the person organized them around a theme. The International Conference of Depression Survivors, the International Conference of Suicide Attempt Survivors, the International event of Addiction Recovery Survivors, and there were a couple of other ones, and I fit all those categories: attempted suicide, ex-addict, depression, a bunch of stuff. And here's the interesting thing, that the speakers, and I spoke at all those conferences, and I think there were 4 of them, maybe 5, I don't remember, 4 or 5 of them each year. And the interesting thing was every person had a story, as you would expect, but the point wasn't the trauma. The point was 2 things: recovery from said trauma, and the other thing is, what did it teach you? How did it shape you? What did it do for you in a positive way? And sometimes people say, in fact, often, I'll never forgive them. I'll never get over it. You're allowed to never get over it. I can promise you, if that's the road I take or you take, I'll never get past it. Your life's going to be way sadder, way smaller, way less exciting, way less full of love and fun than if you choose a different road, which says, I'm going to get over it. I'm already over it. What can I learn from this thing? And you might think there's exactly nothing to learn when someone else did something bad, and you'd be wrong. You'd be dead wrong. There is a ton to learn from suffering. Okay? And that, that might sound like a bold thing. I don't want to suffer. Yeah, you do. Because suffering teaches us patience and love and kindness and understanding. I used to be impatient. I used to wonder, how come everybody didn't think this, that, or know this, that, and the other? And because of the things that I have struggled with, suffered, as it were, or gone through. Sometimes people say pain is necessary, suffering is optional. I agree with that too. But because of those things, I've learned a ton. I'm a completely different person today than before I struggled, suffered, or was afflicted with, or chose. All of those are right for different things before that happened. Today, I'm way more patient, way more loving, way more tolerant and kind and forgiving and everything. Why? Because I've been through so many things. And who am I to judge anybody? All right, so let's tie this back to story, because these last 3 episodes, or 4, today's the 5th one, talking about your story. And the reason is because we're opening the School of Transformational Authorship. Transformational authorship and creation. Now, if you don't know what that is, let me tell you. Okay, the School of Transformational Authorship is about learning about your own development, your own life, and writing a story, writing a book. 85 to 88%, depends on the survey, of people think they should write a book. Now, I don't know if that was worldwide or North American, but it was certainly North American. That means hundreds of millions of people believe they should write a book. Less than 1% ever actually do that. Now, maybe the numbers are wrong and there are some people who shouldn't write books or whatever, but the majority of people should. You probably should write a book. And you might say, why? How do you know? Because here's what I know. The process of writing the book requires you to go deep in your own research about yourself and answer those questions. Now, I'm not talking about writing fiction or Tom Clancy books or, James Patterson or somebody like that. I'm not talking about those. Those might be fun, and I've got friends that write fiction. I'm talking about nonfiction. I'm talking about ultimate life stuff where you live in purpose, prosperity, and joy. And I've said this 100 times, and I'll say it another 100. The most powerful gift I got and you got, that's your own story. The story of your becoming. And if you're sitting around moping about how hard you have it or how many difficult things have happened to you, get over yourself. It's time to use that difficulty and trauma to serve others. Now, if you need to do some work first, fine, do it. Go see the shrinks. Go see the coaches. Go get what you need to get fixed, not ignoring the damage. Believe me, I had boatloads. It led me to all those dark places I said earlier. But what I know is on the other side, having now done the work to get healed, to get fixed, I am full of a yearning to serve you, to love you, to lift you, to bless you, to help you figure out your own story. So guess what? You can live in purpose, prosperity, and joy, and there's no better way to do it than to explore the story of your own becoming. Okay, now back to the music. I wrote The Tightrope of Depression, which was one of the books about my story. There's a trilogy. 2 of them are done. One will be out next year, 27. The second one is called Down from the Gallows. And in the process of writing those books, I thought, I'm going to do something besides just write books. Because, there's a million books. I want to do something else. So I thought, I'm going to write an album of music. Now, this was before Suno and before the stuff that made it easy. I've owned a recording studio for a long time, and I'm an experienced keyboard player and all that stuff. So I started writing an album, and I wrote an album called The Name of the Black, and it talked about the struggles that are outlined in Tightrope of Depression. Then, as soon as I got that book done, actually I was only intending to write one, right? I wasn't ever intending to write a second one. As soon as I got done, I realized, holy crap, I'm not done. And then I started on the sequel, which is called Down from the Gallows. And that is a fabulous book, not because I wrote it. The subtitle is The Truth, the Myth, and the Battles of a Creative with Depression. Now, I'd be willing to bet you, listening to this right now, you're a creative. You are a creative. Maybe not a musician, maybe not an artist, or maybe, but you have creative yearnings, creative desires, and you also are blessed with the yearning to use your gifts and talents, whatever they are, to add good to the world, to make money, to be able to get paid for what you love to do. Well, you can do that. And I used to think that was crap. I used to hear people say, ooh, get paid for what you love. And I've read the articles just like you that sort of debunk that. No, you can't really. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can get paid for who you are. You can get paid for what you love to do, and you can have a hell of a fun life doing it. I know I'm living there, and I wasn't always. I've walked that road from I suck, I can't, it won't, to yes, I can, it will, and it does. And that's the substance of my coaching practice, is to help you find your superpower and save the world, change the world, make money, make a difference, and feel that joy that comes from doing exactly what you love. So let's talk about this concert for a minute, about what's coming. So February 18th, so I finished the first album, and then I did a second album for the second book. Each one of those had 11, and that's 22. And then there's a third book, which I've never revealed the title of, but it'll be in 27. But I've already got the album done, 12 of the 15 songs. So that's 37 something songs, 34, 5 of them are done. So what I'm doing is, starting February 18th, I'm doing concerts. I'm going to do one every month or 6 weeks, talking about two things, performing the songs from the albums. And then I'm also going to tell the stories about them, so you can hear dramatized both in spoken word and in music, the stories that have gone into those books, and the healing and the growth and the opportunities. The reason I'm doing this isn't so I'll say, yay, Kellen, or you'll run out and buy more books, although please do. And it isn't so you'll go out and listen to the music, although please do. If you want to hear the albums, go to Spotify or Amazon or Apple or any place where you got music and put my name in, and you'll find them. The name of the first album is The Name of the Black, and the name of the second one is called Promise and Power. And the name of the third one is called Oasis, although that's in several pieces. Now, here's the point. A story, your story, that just is about the negative stuff, the hard things, the hurtful things, the trauma, the difficulty, the struggle, the pain, isn't very interesting. Here's what happens. It's interesting, but only for that long, because if it's only about that, well, then we go with you into the difficulty, and then you leave us there. Yuck. Okay? When we love books and we love movies and we love these stories, it's about the victory, right? The hero's journey, the getting all the way through and out the other side first. And second, it's about what the hero does next, or the heroine. So if you're our hero or you're our heroine, and you've had difficulty and struggle and been body shamed or hurt or had addictions or abuse or whatever it is, and then you choose through work and forgiveness and difficulty and all the things to get past that, that's the stuff legends are made of. There's plenty of people in the world that stay in the victim place, right? Oh, this stuff happened to me, poor me. And then they expect everybody to come and fix it, and then beat the crap or sue or do whatever to the bad guy. You know what? Real power comes from taking control of our own lives. And I'm not justifying any negative things anybody does. Lord knows I've had plenty of things that I've had to fix or change or do what I can to repair. Plenty of mistakes, plenty of the, oh crap, I wish I hadn't done that moments. There's no question about that. If you want to know the details, read Tightrope of Depression, or listen to the music, the album, Name of the Black, or the second one, Promise and Power. But here's the point of all that. I'm starting the concerts to share more of creativity. Like I said to begin with, you're a creative. I don't know what your mode of expression is, but I know you have one, and I know you enjoy doing it, and I know you can use it to make money, to change the world, create wealth, impact, and meaning. Now, I don't know about you, but for decades, I had a job that I didn't really like. I got good at it. In fact, executive level good, lots of money and everything else. But I was not interested in that stuff. And what it was doesn't even matter. I spent 30 years Yeah, you heard right. 30 years in what I now call a summer job, doing something I got really good at, but there was no meaning in it for me. I had to find meaning in other areas of my life. Now, I did stuff in the community and whatever, but I was not following any kind of passion or direction from my heart. That cost me. It cost me my sanity and eventually a bunch of other problems. So here's my invitation to you. Choose to serve the world with the best you've got. I don't mean the job you're in now. Maybe it is, but 85% of people, 75 to 85, depends on the survey, say, when asked, they don't really like their job. When asked why, most of the time, it's something like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything that matters. I don't think, what I do, who cares? Well, what would it be worth to you to change that? To do something you loved that really mattered, that made a difference. We've been taught, grow up, get an education, go get a job, do all that stuff. And you're free to do that. I'm not saying don't. But 85% of people don't feel fulfilled that way. So this is an invitation to fulfillment. That's why the ultimate life is purpose, prosperity, and joy. Now, we've spent other episodes talking about how to find your purpose. And I've got a process for that. And if you want to know, get a hold of me. Get a hold of me. Go to KellenFlukigerMedia.com. KellenFlukigerMedia.com and use the contact form so that I can talk to you. My whole life is talking to people just like you, helping you find your superpower and then helping you change the world. Because heaven knows we need it. We need all the committed people we can get. All right. So now you know what the concerts are about. They're about all those songs that I've written that tell the stories in different ways with music. And I'll be keeping you updated. The first one's February 18th. Okay. And if you want to know more about it, stay tuned here, or you can go to follow me on social, any of the socials, but probably Facebook. It'll start showing up there. Just my name, Kellen Flukiger. And then you'll know about it and you'll be able to hear my creative stuff. And again, the thing isn't yay for me. It is an invitation for you. Are you living your ultimate life? Do you get up every day loving everything that you've got in front of you on your calendar? And if not, why not? All right, so that's the first part of what I wanted to talk about today. And the next part is, I titled this, Your Story is Not Your Trauma. Okay, I have a guy right now that's going to join one of my book challenges. The next book challenge, if you're ready to write your story, ready to make money and impact and personal meaning, then go to dreambuildwriteit.com. Dreambuildwriteit.com, because that's where we're going to have the next challenge. You can find all about it there. It's February 23rd. I'm really excited because that one is the entry point to what I mentioned earlier, the School of Transformational Authorship. Now, I've been helping people write books for a dozen years, but now we've leveled it up. This is a whole new game, a whole new process, a whole new powerful thing that also helps you market, get your book sold, get in front of a lot of people. So if you've ever had that urge to write a book, this is your time. All right, so let's talk about how to find your story. And we started about that last week, about mining your life for meaning. And we went through several specific things about how to mine your life for meaning. One of the most common things that I hear when I ask people about, what do they have to offer, what the most common answer is? I got nothing. Well, I laugh when I hear that, and I'll tell you why. Some years ago, probably 10, 12 years, because it was before I started helping people write books. So maybe 13 years ago, in 2013, I went to a conference. And the speaker at the conference was Bo Eason. Now, if you know him, you might know him from several places. Bo Eason is a Hall of Fame football player. He also has the distinction of being quite small, not like most football players. In fact, he was considered way too small for the position that he played. He played for the Houston Oilers and, eventually set some records and got himself into the Hall of Fame. Now, and after that football stuff, he became a speaker, and he did a one-man play called Runt of the Litter, referring to his size, and, the story of his own ascension and determination and that kind of thing. But anyway, now here I sit right now. I've written 23 books. I speak all over the place, and I help people write their own stories, and I use mine to serve and all that stuff. You know that. At that time, 13 years ago, when I didn't know any of that. I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know if I had anything. And not all, but most of the things that have happened to me, from which I've created this entire empire and career, have had happened to me. Now, dying in 2018 hadn't happened yet, but most of the other stuff had. And here's the funny thing. I sat in that conference and I listened to him speak, and he was awesome. It was awesome over awesome. Everybody in the room was on the chair hanging on the edge. Wow, listening to him speak, and he kept us captivated and everything else. And of course, he was selling something. He was trying to enroll us in a 3-day event that was going to be, a few months in the future, where we would pay however much to come and attend the event. And he was going to teach us this art of storytelling. Well, in my executive career, that 30 years I told you about, I had spoken at conferences around the world. I'd been a keynote speaker and stuff, but it was all about this particular subject, this particular technical field I was part of. And so, it was easy for me to talk about that stuff over there because it wasn't about me. And I got decent at speaking. And as I listened to him speak and tell his story, because that's what he was using as the foundation, his own story about what happened when he was a kid and how he got into football and, that whole career thing, and against all odds, getting put on team, and then the NFL, which was considered impossible for him because he was so small. All of that, I listened and listened, and I was captivated like everybody else. And I knew he was building up to sell us something, and it was exactly what I thought, which was this conference to learn to tell stories. And here's what happened. As it got close to the end, I thought to myself, he's really good, but I already know how to speak in front of people. I'm not afraid. I do a good job. I'm dynamic, and I know how to do that. And I don't have a story like he does. I mean, listen to the power of his story. So it got so frustrating that I got up out of my chair, and this is in a room with between 700 and 1,000 people, like a big ballroom, right? And I was about somewhere between 1/3 and half of the way back. So not way up front, but certainly not far back. And I was so frustrated, I got up and stomped out of the room. I didn't yell or scream, but, getting up and stomping out of the room probably drew some attention. And what probably drew a little more attention is I had tears in my eyes, and they weren't tears of sadness. They were frustration. And on the way out, I muttered under my breath, well, I could do that too. If I had a story like his, but me, I got nothing. And I was absolutely 100% convinced that I had absolutely nothing that I could turn into a story or use in a valuable way, et cetera, et cetera. And when I tell clients that now, they laugh at me because here I am 23 books later, tons of conferences, tons of keynotes, and all the rest. My point is, I don't care if you think you've got nothing. You're wrong. You have an awesome story. I know. I've helped me and a boatload of others find their story, figure out how to use it, and then create, guess what? Wealth, impact, and meaning. Now, I'm talking for the last few weeks, and I will be for a couple of more weeks, about how important this is. Why would I do that? Yeah, my book challenge is coming up on February 23rd. But more importantly, whether you use my method or you help somebody else help you, the most fun you can have is telling your story. Really. The problem is we don't know how to mine it. We don't know how to make it valuable, just like I didn't. It's like I was convinced I had nothing. And it's not true. It's not true at all. And neither is it true for you. All right. So now you know about the music, February 18th. You know about the challenge on the 23rd. You know, more importantly, that your story is the most important thing that you have to offer the world to create wealth, impact, and meaning. Now, I want to talk today, the rest of today, about what your story is and what it isn't. Okay, remember last week we talked about exactly what to do to mine your story, but sometimes people get lost. They get confused. And here's what they get confused about. They think that they got to have a ton of trauma, bad things. I've had people say to me, I didn't have anything bad. I've never been an addict. I've never, attempted suicide. I've never had bankruptcy. I've never this. I got nothing. And they say the same stupid, and I say stupid not from their point of view, but knowing that it's not true, the same stupid thing I said stomping out of that conference. You're so valuable, you just don't know it yet, like I didn't. But what your story isn't, is it isn't your trauma. That's an input, okay? Pain is not the product. Now, if you've done any marketing at all, or if you have business, your own business, and you're trying to do any marketing, marketers will tell you to find the pain point of your potential customer, agitate it, and then present your product or service as the solution. That's true. Excuse me. Oh, sorry about that. That's exactly right. But pain is not the product. People are trying to get out of pain. So it is absolutely necessary to use the painful parts of your story, whatever they are, to create rapport, to create a connection. Because the first thing that people think when they hear you talk or me talk, especially if we are trying to, quote, help them or do something valuable or entertain them even, is, yeah, but you don't know me. You don't know anything about me. You can't possibly understand the struggle I've been through. You can't possibly know that. And you know what? They're exactly right. And so you never go in there saying, well, I know exactly what you're feeling. Nonsense. What you're sharing after the pain, since pain is not the product, is the wisdom that you gained from getting past the pain. That's why I said to start with, if you're stuck in the pain, you're not ready to, it's not ready to lead. You're ready to heal. You're ready to go get the help you need and get past it. But it is the process of growth that is really valuable, not stewing in the soup of misery. The process of growth, the wisdom. So if I tell my story of misery and pain and struggle and depression and drugs and whatever, and I don't have an integration, I don't have a process out, then I'm harming me, because all I'm doing is stirring up trauma in myself that's now still unresolved in me and you. So it harms the teller and the listener. So please don't go down that road. You need to have the trauma and the difficulties and the struggles, and you don't need to have a bankruptcy or addiction or whatever. You've got plenty. Life is full of them. Death of a loved one, betrayal of a relationship, business failures. Bankruptcy is a very common one. Struggling with mental illness. I mean, I was one of those too, but there's epidemic proportions of that. And that's just a few. And again, the trauma isn't the story. The recovery is the story. The growth is the story. The choice not to live in the swamp is the story. Now, there's ways to tell it, ways to organize it, and that's what we do in the book challenge. So endless retelling of trauma keeps people stuck. It reminds me of something that someone said about a rest home is a bunch of old men giving organ recitals where they're all talking about their operations, right? And that's not the same as trauma, but that retelling, nobody grows from that. It might be entertaining for a minute for that small group, but there's no value there. Okay? What we're trying to do when we're coming from a place of purpose, like nearly everyone I talk to says, "Ooh, I like to help people." Okay, the best way to do it, get yourself on a healing journey and then share it. That's it. Get yourself on the healing journey and share it. Get yourself on the healing journey and share it. Document and share the process. Document the failures, document the successes. And the easiest and most powerful way to do that is to write a book. And the reason it is because the rigor associated with telling a story that essentially is a monologue, right? Because when you read a book, it's a monologue. And so you got to be artful about engaging and keeping people moving through it. And there has to be a resolution. There has to be a place to aspire to, right? Okay, audiences don't need all the details. Another big mistake that people make when they center their story around the trauma, whatever it is, whether it's financial, health-wise, mental, physical, spiritual, whatever, if you center around that and you have endless detail, that's too much detail, TMI, too much information. What we need to share is direction. Direction. I was here in this low place, and you can tell some detail, but too much detail isn't helpful. It really isn't. It doesn't lift and bless. It is, I've stuck here and I did this, and then I went and got this kind of help, and I stuck with it, and here's where I am, and I'm telling it way too quickly and glibly, but you can't stay. You dip into the darkness. You dip into the dark night of the soul, and then you proceed on the path of growth and the path of recovery. Trauma-centered storytelling doesn't do that. It stays stuck too long. The next way to think about that is we're really talking about, with your story, power over pain. Now, pain is important because then it makes the power that much better, that much more attractive, that much more exciting. But you've got to have power over the pain. I had the chance to interview a woman some years back, and her story was amazing. She struggled with domestic abuse and all kinds of terrifying things. And the thing that was powerful was she wouldn't quit. She got out of the situation. She got herself healed. She has ongoing, to this day, physical difficulties, had part of her arm amputated. I mean, serious stuff. Still smiling, cheerful, dedicated to her daughter, focused, clear. That is it's worth money, it's worth a following, and it creates meaning in your heart. So if you've said to yourself, I like helping people, or you've said something like, I want to give back, or you've said, I know I could be of service or help people this or that way, the key is your own journey back, your own journey up. And that has to start with the difficulty, but it doesn't stay there. All right, so the next thing I want you to think about is this. Authority, your authority as an authority figure to help people, it comes from your resolution, not your wounds. The wounds create rapport. They create connection. That's true. Okay, I've had people, in fact, the other day I was talking to someone who said to me, the only reason I'm able to open up to you is because I know you've struggled with addiction and you had this difficulty, and he listed some of the things he knew. But that was enough to create the yearning to talk. But the reason he wanted to talk and get coaching was he knew that I was there and now I'm here. And so he said, wow, you connected with me with this, and I want to go where you are. I want my life to be what he perceived mine to be, under control and moving in a positive direction. And it is. And I'll claim it straight up, I live that ultimate life: purpose, prosperity, and joy. And if I think about that, 20 years ago, I could not imagine. I literally could not imagine. I remember thinking, in the midst of all of the whirlwind of nonsense, I'll never get out of here. I'm stuck, I'm dead, I'm finished. And the idea that there was a way out, and to get to today where I have, books and a business and a coaching practice and all that stuff, I could not even conceive that. So what I can tell you for sure is, no matter where you are and what's happened, there's a way for you not only to get help and get out, and maybe you already have or are doing it, you're on the way, but there is a way to use that so that it makes you feel so good. It makes you know that you're helping. It makes you know that you're serving. It makes you also able to create a business and money. And I had somebody say to me the other day, well, there's so many coaches and so many this and that. There's nowhere near enough. All you have to do is look around at how many people still live in what I call the soul-sucking swamp of addiction to mediocrity, learned helplessness, and victim mindset. It's funny, I had a radio show, not my radio show, but I was invited to be on a very, very large, one of the 5 largest radio broadcasting things in the country. At least that was their claim. But anyway, the thing, I had a publicity agent pitching shows for me, and the thing that the producer told me had hooked them was this addiction to mediocrity idea, because what I said is addiction to mediocrity is ruining our lives. It's ruining our joy. It's ruining our growth. It's ruining our happiness. And that was what they wanted to talk about. So when I'm sharing this with you, I want you to internalize 2 things. Your story is valuable, absolutely. It may start in whatever struggles or pain that you have experienced, and each step that you have up the ladder of healing, up the ladder of recovery and healing and growth, owning your life, sovereignty, makes your story and your life more valuable. All you have to do, now, my wife and I, live in Canada, but we're both dual national. And when I look at what's going on in the United States, I was born there and lived there for most of my life. I'm scared, I'm sad, I'm horrified. If we can't see that we need more love, more healed people, more people who are healed or healing, willing to jump into the fray and help others heal, help others find their own meaning and purpose, we can use an infinite amount of that, because it doesn't feel like it's getting better, or if it is, not much faster. All right, so here's some ways to tell. So I've talked about when you have a trauma or many traumas in your life, and you've said, I'm not going to let that govern me. And I said, every step you take away from that makes your story more powerful. Because remember, this is the start, but it's not the substance. The substance is the growth journey. So and I just told you, authority comes from resolution and not from wounds. A healed story carries weight. A broken story is interesting and maybe entertaining, but it is not healing. And it is certainly nothing to build a business on. So how do you tell when your story is ready? When you're ready to share? Here are some telltale signs, and I'm not going to say they're the only ones, but they're certainly a marker that I use as I work with people writing books, learning to tell their own story, to find their story, to tell it, and then how to monetize it through books, products, and services, and so forth. Speaking and all the other ways that are possible. There are more ways possible to serve and make money with your story today than there's ever been. But anyway, number 1 is emotional neutrality. I didn't know what that was. But during the years of healing, I was in a shrink's office, and he asked me about a particular, he asked me some questions, and I told him about an event in my life. And just describing that event created a lot of emotion, right? I cried and it was difficult. I couldn't even speak some of the words. And he said to me, when you can tell that story without getting emotional, without crying, you'll know that you've processed that and that you can then move on. Now, he wasn't trying to help me with the kind of work that I do here. He was just trying to help me get from broken to healed. And so emotional neutrality means that when you talk about events in your past, they no longer tear your heart out, make you angry. If they're still doing that, then they're still alive for you. Okay? And they're still damaging you. And that's a sign, a big one, that you need to do one of many things for help. Maybe it's a shrink, maybe it's a coach, maybe whatever, but you got to process that, because what I notice in using my own story and helping others write their books and stories and create products and services and businesses is that if that stays fresh and raw and present, they're not very effective. Because to be effective, you have to be able to understand it and tell it truthfully, but it can't tear you up at the same time. So emotional neutrality. The next telltale sign is compassion without a charge, without an emotional charge. That you're able to be compassionate with someone without getting angry or getting in it. And that's almost always because it's triggering something from yours. The last thing that I want to mention, there's just three, there's others, but is that you know that you've got insight, wisdom. I talked about that earlier. When you look at your story, your trauma, your difficulties, the things that have been done to you or that you did, mistakes that you have healed from or on the way healing, what you notice right away is you've got insight that you know will serve others. Oh, crap. And that usually sounds like this. I wish I'd known that then. I wish I'd known that a year ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I wish I was able to look at it then like I do now. That kind of insight, that's gold. That is gold bars. It is platinum bars. It is big money, big value, and worth not only a lot of cash, but it's worth a lot of help in terms of serving others. Now, how you use it, how you tell it, how you package it, how you turn it into products and services, that's part of the dream it, build it, write it. So dreambuildwriteit.com. But that's when you know, because then you've got insight and you're realizing, holy cow, I could really help somebody with this. I remember exactly when I started feeling like that. Okay, when I first, 2007 was my dramatic turnaround. Most of you know that. I had this life of struggle and addictions and depression and suicides and all that other stuff. And then in 2007, which is now 18, going on 19 years ago, coming up to 19, I had a dramatic event happen that didn't heal me at all, but it changed my perspective and let me finally say, I'm not going to live like this. I'm done. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know where I got to go. I don't know who I got to see or what's going on, but I'm done with this. And so when that started, I had to get all kinds of help. And what I noticed is 2 years into that, 2009, 2010, I started feeling like this. I started noticing that I was getting better. And right with that came this feeling of, and I got valuable stuff I can help people with. And I knew it because I was sitting here thinking, I wish I'd understood this before. I wish I'd been able to do this or think this or feel this or have this perspective before. And the more I healed, the more of that I got. And if you have done that kind of work, then you know that also. You know that also. And I talk to so many people. And you know what? Most of the time, there's a phrase, broke healers. Broke healers. And I don't like the word, but that phrase, but it's kind of funny. Because there are people that have gone through the healing work, some or a lot of it. And so they're way on the healed path, but they don't know how to turn it into real service. And so they run around helping people in a disorganized and not very structured way. And you're free to do that, but it's not going to let you create a business. It's not going to let you have the reach and help that you could have, right? Creating a structure around it, products, services, clarity of language, all that kind of good stuff that you could have if you'll do the work. So we started talking about music and books that I've done, encouraging you to look at your story, dive in deep, because it's the most powerful stuff you have. And then we were talking about, your trauma isn't the key. The trauma is the starting gate. And I use trauma as an inclusive term. Any kind of struggle, injustice, health, wealth, anything that's happened to you that has shaped your life can also be good things, powerful things, things you created. Those dramatic events, although most of the time it's the hurtful and grumpy ones that stick with us the most hateful and hurtful, those are the fuel. But they're only the starting gate. The real value where you can really be of service, and that also means make a good living, is when you know how to turn those events into help, into service, into products and services. So it isn't the negative things that are the key. They're the starting point. And like I said earlier, every step you take on the healing path adds another zero to the value of your wisdom, your inspiration, your learning, the things that you've got. And sometimes people say to me, yeah, but if that's true for everybody, isn't everybody saying the same thing? And the answer is not by a mile. Not by a mile. Not everyone. Several. Some of my clients are in the sort of coaching and helping business, and some are just business owners and so forth. Every time I hear this thing, well, if everybody's saying it, what good am I? Here's what I know. My voice, the way I talk to people, is really attractive to a certain group. To another group, it's like, can I throw up now? I'm not interested. I don't like the way he talks or his analogies or his... That we need every single person that we can get, because your voice will resonate with a certain group. My voice resonates with a certain group, and I've got some really devoted followers. But there's just not enough of us who are out to serve the world. So I invite you, take this invitation. Remember, your story is not your trauma. Your integration and growth is your power. Okay? Integration and growth doesn't happen accidentally. It requires guidance, structure, and discernment. I needed all kinds of help. So do you. The question is, are you getting it, and is it working? I opened the School of Transformational Authorship to help you find your story, learn how to use it, and to serve with it. It's what you want to do anyway. You want to be of service. You want to make a difference. You want to add good to the world. And I would love to help you. So right now, if you're interested, any of this stuff has struck a chord with you, then dreambuildwriteit.com is the right place to go to find out if it makes sense for you to tell your story and create an impact. It's time for you to ask that question. Don't wait any longer. Your voice is needed, and your voice is important. So the last thing I want to talk about today is two things quickly. One is our next episode is going to talk about the right expression for your story. We've talked about why it's valuable, that it's not trauma, but just like we're different people, how you express your story to make the most impact in the world is going to be different. Okay, I have people that love to just go speak, and they want to go be speakers, motivational speakers or whatever. I have people that want to write books and then more books and want to do stuff like I've done. I have people that want to create workshops. and go into corporate and teach people how to lead. I got one guy right now that I've been talking to, and his superpower is he had 20 years in corporate, MBA, Harvard, all the creds, and now he's got on this mission to teach people how to lead with love. That leadership needs to be grounded and come from a place of love. So there's room for you right here, right now. You have every right to live that ultimate life, purpose, prosperity, and joy. I can't wait to help you. If there's something I can do, get a hold of me. Go to dreambuildwriteit.com and sign up, or kellenflukigermedia.com and contact me. We need your voice. We need your story, because there's nothing that should get in the way of you moving forward with joy and creating your ultimate life.
You're listening to Your Ultimate Life with Kellen Flukiger, only on LA Talk Radio.